in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the KD Ratio Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan, and with me tonight,
William.
And Kyle.
there was
go, Kyle.
quite a bit of silence there. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. What about you, Kyle?
I'm doing just as well as can be expected.
That's great to hear. So, Billy,
What's up?
I know you have some exciting stuff to talk about Apex, League of Legends.
Dude, Apex
I'm kidding.
Yeah. You just threw me for a massive loop. I was like, whoa, is that? Yeah, Apex Legends. The ALGS Global Series was this weekend. I've been getting it. I've been into the competitive space for Apex for a while, not personally as a player, but as just a viewer, and as a fan of it. I like the setup of Apex as an esport, and it's just drawn me in more and more. Because I just love BRs, and it's really exciting time to be in love with Apex. With that being said, the ALGS was quite the spectacle, man. It was an absolute blast to watch. So I didn't watch sort of the quarter, not the, I don't know what they would call those, but like the day one and day two sort of mini series that they were doing, because there was, I think, a total of 40 teams actually. 40 or yeah, I think 40 or 80, like 40 or 60 teams, like a lot of teams qualified for this kind of 3-day event. And Sunday was sort of the conclusion. And I'd love to get your guys' feedback as to what you think of this as a format. But I really love their finals format. The idea is it is a 20 team sort of match. So that's traditional with Apex, right? You get 20 teams of 3, and that's your 60-person server. But what's neat about it is you get like 1 point for each kill, and then you get placement points, and I think placement points start at 10, and if you're 10th you get like 1 or 2, and you get like 2 if you're 7 through 9. And but it's heavily weighted towards like first, second, and third. If you fall outside of that, you only get a couple points. So if you basically were in 5th place, let's say, and your team got no kills, and maybe you just ratted it out because the other 2 players on your team died early on, and you just ratted out, you really didn't get like a big boost in points over a team that maybe had like 5 or 6 kills and finished first. So it's kind of a neat little format in that regard, for points wise. But here's how it's scored, and I thought this was a fantastic idea. So the way it works is every team is competing. Obviously, there's 20 teams, like I mentioned, but everyone is on this race to 50 points, and it's just an arbitrary number set. So again, that's between your kills and your placement points. Your team needs to get to 50 points to unlock what's called match point. Okay, and once you unlock match point, then you have to win a game for your team to win. So if you're catching on to like this cool format idea, it is really cool because they had this Furia team qualified very early on because they were just a team of murderers, man. They were it was this guy named His Watson, absolute animal when it comes to just slaying out. I think he had 10 kills on his own in like one game or something like that, which is insane against top tier players. Like usually your team gets only like 4 or 5 kills because Apex tends to be really ratty and campy, just based on its setup and length of time to kill and stuff. But like his teammate, I think led the entire series in kills. I think he had like 18 or 25 kills the entire like final day, which is insane.
Wow.
Because that's 25 points for your team just based on kills, which is like half of what you needed. So, but what's cool is like they got there very quickly because they were just killing everything. They were engaging in every fight. and they I think they won a game and they got a couple top fives and stuff like that. So they crossed that 50 match point. But based on their but they unlocked it, but they couldn't close it out on a win. You know what I'm saying? So it went that they were the only team over 50 points for like 3 games. And then once game 4 and I think it finished on game 5 after match point ended. I think they went 10 rounds, 9 or 10 rounds total. When it ended, there was like 11 teams in match point. So basically the way it works is if any of those 11 teams win that game, they win the championship. And what's really cool about it is one, it gets extended and you have this sort of hype and anxiety and like excitement for the games going on because it's like, oh God, if one of these, 4 teams win, then the series is over. And then one gets eliminated. And then there's 2 get eliminated. And then like the last team that could possibly end the championship goes out. Then like everybody celebrates because you're going to get another game. And then like now all of a sudden the next game, like all the teams that were about to unlock match point probably did, and now you've got what happened. I think there was 3 teams that had match point unlocked, and then none of them won. They all got eliminated very early on. I think the furthest team made it like top 14. Like they all got eliminated very early on. Then literally the next game there was 11 or so, 9 or 11 teams that unlocked match point. And so you have like, oh shit, now it's like, you were the only team that could potentially win the game, and then 2 games later, you have to win it or you lose it. And my final point as to why I love this format so much is it forces the team who wins to win the final game, which is something that's lost in a lot of these Call of Duty tournaments where it's like you don't necessarily have to win the game like for kill race stuff that's set up in Call of Duty. You just have to score the most points. Or like when you do like the Call of Duty World's Championships or World Series, whatever they call it. You don't have to win the last game, you just have to have the most points. And so it's like it's kind of uninteresting because you're not like gripping to your seat on that last game. In Apex, in this format, you have to be the last one. You have to clutch up. You have to be the team comp that wins and push it over the edge. And to me, it's just really damn exciting to be a fan of that. I think it went on for like 6 or 7 hours on Sunday, and my wife and I watched all of it. And it was just sort of on the background while we cleaned and cooked and did whatever we do on Sundays. But the last like hour or so was so intense. And I was just curious, like, one, does that format seem exciting to you guys? Like, or and 2, like, what do you got? What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I
That
really like the idea of needing to win the final round, to actually win, because it. I've noticed that in other tournaments where it's point based, where like sometimes you're not even like incentivized to watch the final one because you already know that regardless what
Right.
happens, this is the outcome, and it might be entertaining to watch, but it's not like it's all on the line. Like it's not like where there's a Super Bowl season where you can win every game, and then if you lose the Super Bowl, you still win the championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
so I
exactly.
think it's much more entertaining in that aspect for sure.
Yeah, definitely like Kyle's saying, it sounds like a really cool tournament idea. It makes that those last games a lot more exciting and a lot more incentivize you to watch them if you know, oh, this might be the final, and then oh, it's not. So
Yeah.
who's going to be next running up?
I mean,
Um,
it literally got to the point where it was like I was rooting for the teams who hadn't qualified, like because there were teams that finished the previous game. Because you can't finish with over 50 and then win that game. Like you have to close out a game with over 50 and then you unlock match point.
the next
So
game.
exactly. So there were teams that got to 49 points on the game on the one before,
Ah,
but because they're not over 50, they had to basically play another one. So they basically weren't competing for the championship in that last game. And it was kind of a bummer. So you get like as a fan who, I just personally I've always been a fan of TSM. I followed them from League of Legends days, and back when Scarra was still on the team, and he was like the greatest minion farmer of all time, and I just fell in love with that team. And now they're this conglomerate. Like, I think they're one of the not wealthiest, but highest valued franchises across esports, and I just was rooting for them, and I like Imperial Howl a lot, and I like Reps a lot. So for Apex, those two, the two, what do you call them? Athletes, gamers.
Gamer
um,
athletes.
yeah, gamer athletes.
Ooh, that's a debate in itself. It's the whole sport versus
Right.
game thing.
So I was rooting for them, and unfortunately, they only got to I think they had 47 points or something like that, so they didn't quite qualify for the final one. But they made it like top 3, so it was like really interesting at that time. They were the last team, I think, in the final game to be able to extend the entire match for the whole lobby. But it just made it build up to this point where not necessarily being first over 50 is the goal, right? Like you might want to have just a slow pace today where you're sort of getting some kills, but you're getting good placement points, because at the end of the day, like the murder squad that got ultimately second place were miles ahead in terms of points because they were just killing everything. But at the end of the day, they didn't win that final game to then clutch the trophy and $500,000. So it was kind of this interesting balance, and the way that the points are set up, it was really unique because a lot of I don't pretend to sit there and play Apex at a pro level. I'm actually quite terrible at the game. But there was a lot of analysts that were talking about like their team comp was really good for engagements, but it's not good for winning of the game. And I think that's what came down to it. Like they didn't have the right champions to sort of bunker down, get behind shields, like be able to bubble using Gibraltar's bubble that like absorbs all damage and stuff. Like they weren't defensive enough. They were really offensive, and I think that was ultimately their downfall. But they played their style, and it was really damn exciting. But the way that the tournament's set up, that the way that the tournament's really set up is it's so flexible in terms of how you can play. Like you could play that way, I guess, to get to 50, and then maybe change your team comp. But either way, it was really exciting to watch. As a fan of Apex, it was way more entertaining than I thought it would be. They held this in Raleigh, North Carolina, I believe, so it was East Coast. And I'd love to see them come down to like Vegas or something in that esports arena that they have at the Pyramid. I can't remember the name of the casino. But
Luxor.
the Luxor. They have a huge esports arena down there. I would love to see like more stuff there. Like I might get into traveling for these types of events because they're fucking exciting, man. And it's just a lot of fun. It was really enjoyable to watch, and the biggest thing for me is like 5 years ago, League of Legends was really good about putting esports on the map, in my opinion, in terms of making them entertaining. Like watching them was interesting. The game mode was interesting, and the way that they had commentators and stuff. It felt like a full package. I felt like this one with Apex, it was done from a spectator's perspective really well. The pacing of the games, like the downtime between games, I think was like maybe 10 minutes, if that. It felt like 5 minutes because there would be like 5 minute of analyst breakdown after each session. So it felt very quick, like we were always in the middle of a match. I still think there's room to improve in terms of camera angles and stuff in first person shooters and how you view that, because you've got this massive battle royale map right inside of Apex Legends that they're playing within, and then you might have multiple teams fighting at once. So I'd like to see maybe them go like split screen or have more top down views of like, hey, this is where the two teams are located, this is how they're fighting each other, this is how they're rotating. um just more information like that, because a lot of the time you're just watching one side of the fight, and then you're only watching one person of that one side in the fight, and you're missing out on a lot of the information. So I think there's still some maturity to happen in how you actually view the sport or view the the game as as an entertaining spectacle. But I think we're getting there, man. Honestly,
I was
it's
watching a Rainbow Six tournament once, and they had like a really good setup. And I don't know if it would work in a BR because it's so huge. But they had the main camera that was cycling back and forth between the players' perspectives. But then they also had a side camera, like off to the side, that literally was just a top down view of the map. And so you could like kind of see everyone at once. You saw the whole top down view, and then off to the side, that's where you saw the players' perspectives. And then they had like this little tiny spot for like the commentators, which was kind of weird because they're sitting behind a desk and everything. It looked very like ESPN. But I really liked that approach because I like seeing like a top
you want all
down
the
view.
information.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
want to see everything at once.
you want
Which
all
is
the information.
interesting that they don't have more of that. Like, it's a video game. It's something that we created versus like sports. It's you have to deal with nature and whatever the sport
Physics.
involves. Yeah, physics. A video game, they could just do like a free cam and
And they
have like
did have that, and they did overlay it with like the characters' names and stuff, but it still had its bugs. Like if all the players were standing very near each other, it would only show one. So if you got a top down view, you're like, oh shit, there's only one guy left on TSM or whatever, and you're like, oh, and then they walk away from each other and like, oh wait, no, there's still three. Like, there was still some wonkiness, and it definitely needs to mature, but I think it's getting close. Like, I love the idea of a free cam, especially for a BR, and I think like for Rainbow Six, like you could totally set up like cameras and pinch points and stuff, so you can get really cool recordings that way too. Um, I don't know. They also had like a wall hack kind of thing on their free camera where you could see the other team like through the wall. So you sort of had all the information as to where they were, but which definitely helped in terms of like feeling the pressure of, oh my god, they're right there. All three of them are sitting right there or whatever. But yeah, it was just anyway. I'm a big fan of Apex. I'm a big fan of esports. It's fun to watch these events and have them mean something. I love that it meant something in the end. Just like Kyle said, it's like you get to the Super Bowl and then you don't have to win the Super Bowl because you're so far ahead. I think what makes those sports so great, football, basketball, whatever, is that final minute in the NBA. Takes 15 minutes. It's always joked about, right? But it means something if it's a tight game. In football, things can change dramatically quick. Like the 2-minute drill is a thing, and it gets everyone on the edge of the seats, and you watch it for those moments. This event, the way the ALGS was put on, was done so, and the scoring was set up in a way that the team that wins the highest pressure stake moment is that final battle where it's people with their guns out shooting each other down and last man standing wins, and it's exactly how it needs to be to mature and evolve going forward. So big shout out to I believe it's called Dark Zero. They're an Australian team who basically they won the tournament, they took home the trophy, and they crushed it. There's a guy, Jen Burton, who's uh, controller player, one of the few at the actual tournament that crushed it there, and he's just a good dude too. So, yeah, it was an awesome day to watch it. What's funny is Dark Zero. I didn't even feel like we're really in the tournament at all. They really weren't even displayed as being like one of the leading teams, but they made it into the match point, and then they took home the trophy. And they weren't necessarily in first or last. They just were sort of that middle pack that got in and then clutched up and won it. And so really exciting to see. And I think they went back to back in terms of championships. So they're definitely a competitive team, and it's just exciting to see this esport have success because it was watched by like 1 million people plus. So
yeah,
it was really popular.
that's awesome. It it I wanted to touch back on when you guys mentioned, like, I think it was Kyle said, like, is esports, are they athletes or like is it a game?
I was literally just gonna say that too. I was like,
Yeah.
we joked about it, but is there a case
Well, I
for
mean,
calling them athlete, or should they remain players?
it's interesting, right? Because we are now seeing like I was going to mention one of my coworkers was part of a collegiate League of Legends team, and we're starting to see these esports go into like a lot of fields that we would normally see um, you know sports games go into. And I mean, it's even called esports, but that's a tough question because is chess sports?
Well, I
Yeah,
just
you don't
googled.
call a chess player an athlete; you call them a player. And I don't know if that's different or not.
So I looked up. Athlete as a definition, and it says a person who is proficient in sports and other forms of physical exercise. So I
Mm,
think using the term athlete is, maybe inappropriate, and I've actually heard a lot of people like talking about how they want to actually disassociate that from, like, esports is one of the worst, misnomers. They need to come out with like basically a better naming scheme for
maybe
that,
like
because I think,
e-games.
yeah,
But then that sounds
that's
silly.
kind of silly,
Yeah.
right? But I've heard that opinion where it's like, that's really bad, unfortunate naming, because I think a lot of people, then it
Yeah.
creates controversy, right? Like, or people trying to get into it, they're like, these guys aren't athletes. Like, what do you mean esports? There's nothing sport, and it kind of creates this sort of drama around it. Um, but that aside, who gives a shit about how it's classified or named? I don't care about that. The one thing that I will note is the difference between athletes is, there's certainly a studied element, like, to professional sports, especially if it's competitive. And especially if it's a team sport. Where, like, especially like in football or basketball, it's studying film and looking at the other team and how they're going to play you, because there's an offense and a defensive side. Um, and what's interesting in actual true sports is, let's just take the studied element out of it, because that's a struggle in and of itself. You can only work out your body, what, max 3-4 hours rigorously a day, where you're exerting all your energy and you're just physically drained. You have nothing left. You're sore. You can only go for those few hours. The difference between that and an esports competitor, which I think is probably the best term to describe them,
Competitor. I like it.
um, is they grind 14 to 16 hours a day. Like, to be at the top 1%, like, not even 1%, 0.1% of, like, League of Legends, it requires a minimum of grinding for 12 hours. To be at the top of like first person shooters, it's training your aim, having map knowledge and awareness. It's being so ingrained into it. And what's amazing is, like, even watching this Apex Legends tournament, the difference between the top 10 teams and the bottom 10 teams was dramatic. Like, dramatic. Like, regularly, the worst teams were losing fights, were having bad positioning. They just weren't cohesive. Um, and it was kind of amazing to see that dichotomy. And these guys are just grinders, and it's because your physical body doesn't break down when you're playing games. It's just that mental energy. And that's why you see a lot of them get burnout and struggle with stress and anxiety, because it's all mental stress and anxiety
Hmm.
of sitting on your chair and focusing on this game, the same repetitive tasks over and over for, 14, 16 hours a day. It's just absolutely insane. And my final comment on it is, even more than sports, physical sports, the over the hill age is way younger in competitive online gaming. You're considered over the hill basically by the time you're 23, 25.
Ah,
Your
damn.
reaction speeds slow down, your decision making ability slows down. If you look at all these top pro gamers, they're like 16 to 22 years old. And very rarely will you see somebody, the oldest person in the tournament for Apex Legends, the announcer said it, he was 27 years old.
Oh, I still have a chance.
That was the oldest person in the tournament. And it's just the reality of the situation. Like, these younger people have more time to dedicate to it. Their lives maybe are simpler. You don't have, married or kids or whatever, but they could dedicate the time, and the reaction speeds are, from a biological standpoint, they have every advantage over someone who's just getting older. And so there are things that, like, are very similar from traditional sports to esports. Like the over the hill ages, like you can't compete in football and stuff like that, or NBA when you're 50, 60 years old. You start to slow down, right? And same, like, all those are sort of made dramatic in the esports realm. Um, to the point, like, 23, 24, like, you're already starting to be ancient. And then the mental stress and burnout, man. Like, these guys, like, what they do is they'll translate into, like, a streaming career, and they'll start streaming and play other games because they put in 20,000 hours into CS:GO or something. We just seen Shroud. He made a huge announcement this past month or so. I don't know when officially he announced, but you guys have heard of Shroud, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so Shroud made an announcement he's going to get back to the esports game. He's going to be a pro gamer for the game Valorant. And he comes back. He comes from that, like, CS, Counter-Strike era type video games where it's pinpoint accuracy and stuff. He's definitely over the hill in terms of age, but, like, once he finished that competitive scene, I don't really know his career intimately, but I don't think he really went into the competitive space after that. Like, he sort of leaned on his streaming career and did that. Like, it's another level of dedication. And it's impossible to get on, but as it should be, because these people are now. I mean, this tournament was worth $2 million. Total prize money was $2 million. So we're seeing, like, real money go to these sort of events and real viewership. I mean, 1 million people watching that. That's, like, better than most TV shows get. Like, that's insane. Like, I think that's better than maybe everything but the number one or two news channels, like, every night.
Wow.
Like, so you have that many people watching, and it's not really that easy to watch. You have to watch on your phone or go on your computer and stuff like that. Like, streaming is still getting, still kind of evolving in terms of, like, how you access it, especially on TVs and stuff. But it's just amazing to see where we're at. But yeah, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on all that?
That's pretty crazy. I definitely think it's moving to become a more serious thing. I mean, we've seen, like, it used to kind of be a joke, and even before that, it was just like something that you did with your friends. Like, there'd be a Smash tournament at the school in a club, but now it's like we're seeing actual big money be invested into it, and it's going to be wild to see where it goes.
Yeah. For first time competitive gaming was put on a lot of people's radar, even though it had been happening for a long time with, like, you know, Dota and Counter Strike and all that. But I think Call of Duty really helped bring it into the not just nerds were doing it kind of thing. Back when MLG was huge, and now it's really kind of nothing. I think it got absorbed maybe by Blizzard when they did their thing. But yeah, it definitely broke the barrier, I think, of, like, it was uncool for a very long time to be interested in anything beyond casual gaming.
But now
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
millionaires.
now they're million. Well, I hope they take some of that money and get some PR training, because, like, athletes and stuff like that, they have personalities. They have a lot of ego. They're generally in good shape, so they're good looking, so people tend to listen. There's a whole, social science around that and how that all works. But um it they were, like, going around and they were hyping up, like, the announcer was going team by team, announcing each team in the tournament. And literally they got to some teams, and like a couple of like the whole team would just sit there and kind of like look at the camera and maybe like smirk a little, like, oh, this is awkward. It's like, dude, you're competing in a $2 million tournament. Like, stand up. You got fans in the crowd. Like, stand up, hype them up, cheer. Like, give us some personality, man.
Yeah.
Give it like they need some PR training to like, because I think what's going to make it break through, like just like the NBA was in the 80s, like it was played, people went, it was kind of interesting, but then it exploded onto the scene. I'm being very generous with my words here. Exploded on the scene because of Michael Jordan. Michael
Mm-hmm.
Jordan took it to it, transcended it into everyday life. He was making commercials. He was bigger than life. He was making movies. Like, he reached that pop culture. They need to have like some sort of, Michael Jordan sort of level person. Whether it doesn't matter the game, they just need to break through to like the mainstream person. And
Those
streaming
people,
just did
they
that.
have those people, but they're not the ones that are playing 17 hours a day. They're the ones that are Twitch streaming.
That's what I was
And
gonna say.
yeah,
They Twitch or streamers in general just did that, in my opinion, during the Fortnite era, because one, Fortnite took over the world by storm and Ninja capitalized on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think my parents would know who Ninja was, or at least they would have heard of it. Definitely my mother as a teacher. So that transcended, pop culture and pushed into the mainstream media. I think they need to have something like that on the esports side. Whatever game it is, whatever person it is, doesn't matter. They just need to have that before we see the money go from 2 million to 10x, 20 million,
Well, if you look at UFC as a perfect example, the fights where the big personalities like McGregor come out, those are the more
Yep.
popular ones because people get invested in
Yep.
these characters, these heroes,
The
right?
well, I think
drama between the two fighters.
the difference is, especially in UFC, is the most popular and entertaining fighters, the one that get the biggest box office, aren't actually. I mean, they're good most of the time. They're the best of the best, but usually they're not the best. The best are usually ones that don't have that same draw, at least not for a long time, and that doesn't work in gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think having a big loud personality is not gonna get you. It's not going to get the same way UFC. It's not going to get you to the top like that, unless there's like tournaments and you know pay-per-views and things like that to buy into, of where you're watching the person play and not necessarily watching them win, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say that, he's considered one of the greatest Call of Duty players of all time, Scump. He has that big in your face personality that like a Conor McGregor has, and he's like extremely toxic. He was calling people out like on stage and stuff, but the community fell in love with him, and like some of the most hardcore, like definitely the sport of Call of Duty esports grew, with him sort of sitting at the helm. So, it's kind of crazy to think that like you need someone with like a big bolstered, so almost toxic personality, but like that's what you need in gaming. Like, you need to have, you can't just sit there and be like bashful. Like, there was some teams that, holy shit, man, they were some duds. Like, you could tell that they were just, this is Apex, and that is their personality. They don't have anything else going for them. And then there was some that were like, okay, like there's still a human in there. They're playing with the camera. There was a couple of them, but we need someone to really sort of take that and transcend it into something bigger.
Wouldn't
Uh,
it be hilarious to see like them take a note from like WWE and there's like the Hulk Hogan and like the different archetypes. There's like the underdog, there's the villain, the hero.
yeah.
In
I
order
think
for gaming, like gaming esports, to really blow up and be what like that, where like everyone wants to watch it, it's it would have to revolve less around who's the best and more around who has the most entertaining personality. Because if you like bringing it back to like UFC, Conor McGregor's only won one fight in the last 4 years. But you best believe every one of his pay-per-views sells a shit ton because he's got that personality. And so that would, I think, it would lose something of itself. So I don't know if I like that either, but that would be the only way to bring it to like the real mainstream.
It would definitely be wild, and I don't. It'll be interesting to see what they do with esports now. It's something to watch in the future because I think it's going to keep changing. I mean, right now it's pretty much we have what is League of Legends a RTS,
What do you mean RTS?
like real time strategy? Is that how you
Uh,
categorize it?
no, I would call it like a MOBA, middle only battle arena.
Okay, so you have MOBAs or first person shooters. Um, and I mean, I think it'd be so cool to see the various other types of video games out there. I don't think you could ever do like a single player, but just it'd be cool to see the other games kind of get the same traction because there's so much opportunity in video games
The
versus
only other ones that I think get really competitive as far as like esports goes, probably like fighting games. Like
Mm,
fighting games get
yeah,
really competitive and really fun, but they're not pulling in like, the millions that you would get like
for
in other
Apex.
games. Yeah. They're still pulling in a lot of entertainment though. Like Street Fighter 2, Smash Bros, all those types of games are still really popular for esports.
Oh yeah,
Apparently, MOBA stands for multiplayer online battle arena, not middle only. But
middle only.
League of Legends,
Teamed
I
into
think
that.
came out with a game mode for a little while back when I played. We're talking almost a decade ago at this point. Um, called MOBA, and it was middle only. It was one lane, and you push with your team. It was really it was exciting. But no, it's just a battle arena, multiplayer battle arena. Yeah.
Well, I think it's time to move on to our next topic. I wanted to touch on it real quick. We don't have to go too in depth since it was just me and Billy that saw it, but I figure we should give like our official review now that Stranger Things season 4 part 2 is out.
Part 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so what'd you think, Billy?
Um. Yeah. I wish it just got to the point. I mean, I feel like they're really sort of dragging it out at this point. Cinematically, it was great. It was enjoyable to watch. This one, questionable way they rolled it out, like episode wise. Like there was like what one that was 50 minutes and then a 2.5 hour
2.5 out, yeah.
movie. Um. And I don't feel like I got a movie's worth of content in that 2.5 hours. Very strange what Netflix was doing there in terms of like. Don't know why they didn't just split that up into 3 episodes, but nonetheless, whatever. Um, I, yeah, I'm just kind of I don't know. Like, there's still
So
so many questions to have answered,
let me ask you
and
this. Episode the part 2, episode 1, right?
yep.
Did you like that more than part 2, episode 2?
Ask that question one more time. I want to make sure I understand it.
So like in all of part 2, did you like episode 1 or 2 better?
Um, episode 1, the first 15 minutes.
The
The first 15
the
minutes were fantastic, where it sets up like, oh shit, jumps right into 1 and Vecna, and it's like describing it all, like talking about, okay, we're getting ready to fight this dude, but no, it doesn't go to that. Here's my issue with it. From a writing perspective, I don't know why they haven't done this. You've set up this villain great. You 5 years you're battling this ultimate villain. The Mind Flayer was one of his lieutenants. Like they've set all this backstory. Why not give us all the tools to understand what the fuck is going on and why this world, like, why is there this Russian play, and why is it this town, and did this world exist before L? Like, give us some context, or give us some hints or teasers as to, so we can go crazy. Like, no, they just shy away and show this sort of childhood love story, and keep playing on all this, and bringing in side characters, and um who were great actually in this series. The guy who jammed out on the guitar was fantastic. I don't know his name,
Eddie.
but yeah, Eddie, but I don't know his name in real life. Apparently he plays a guitar in real life. I watched him shredding it today on Twitter. It was badass.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he's a totally badass dude. Um, but like, why wouldn't you answer, or give us some conclusion to that stuff, so that we could go into the final battle, not trying to sit there and think about the implications of all this stuff, and just enjoy it for the battle that it is going to be. Yep, here we are sitting in limbo. The one main doctor's alive. The other one's dead, shot up. They do a 180 character arc on him, which I thought was some cheap writing. Like, I don't know. I'm just not. I'm really not impressed, and I'm tired of being strung along with this show. Is it bad? No. I continue to watch because it's decent, but coming from season 1 and 2, in my opinion, it has fallen off so much. Visually, it's still great, but I'm not. I'm in the camp that I'm not enjoying it as much as I was.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I kind of feel that. I think like one of the main reasons, like originally watching season one, right? I was invested in the mystery, and like, I wanted to know more of what was going on. But now in season four, I don't think that's what's holding me anymore. I think it's really good character writing for specific characters. Like I'm a big fan of Hopper and Steve, and but like I, I I think that's pretty much just being able to watch them, and the story's pretty good sometimes, but they're the main draw for me now. Whereas it used to be kind of the mystery and wanting to figure that out. I don't. The mystery's been unfigured out for so long that I just.
Yeah, you're just like over it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And like, here we are. We sit here with probably close to what, 50 hours, 40 hours of content for around this story, and like, you're right. You can only milk it for so long where it remains interesting. And for me, definitely, like, Hopper's storyline, Elle's storyline, they're interesting, but all you've done is just thrown more and more barriers, or blockades in front of their way for them to sort of transcend and get past to continue their storyline. Like, because they haven't wrapped up this other stuff, right?
Hmm.
Like, Elle's origin story, like, we still don't really know about that. Like, eh, I don't know. It's just gotten to the point where it's starting to become really circular. And I honestly, this thing is going to conclude where they don't actually showcase anything. And to me, it's really just lazy writing, because I can write a fucking wild ass story that makes no sense and then not explain it. Like, that's not difficult to do. Um, Now the stuff that they've come up with, the upside down worlds, like, that's interesting. I hope they conclude it. But like, writing a story that, wild shit is happening, like, that's every fucking horror film. Like, it's not that's not difficult to do. um so I just need some conclusion stuff, and I'm sick and tired of this getting kind of renewed with the same answers. Not like, why is the fucking government or military not sending it on this town? Like, this is the wildest shit in the history of the universe that's happening, and they got like one agent working on it who has the power to just smoke fools. Like, that. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, he's part of the military, he just smokes fools. And then if the doctors weren't a part of the government, where was their funding coming from? Because the doctor, it wasn't just him working by himself. He had an army himself who was willing to point guns at children. Like, who were those loyal followers? We just murdered those people off and gave them no backstory. So it's like, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, oh, I think they don't even know, and they're gonna just slap a bow on this thing and call it, there's your Stranger Things. It's just Stranger.
Things.
Yeah, Stranger Than Things. Yeah, no, it's just stupid.
Well, I hope the last season actually, wraps up everything and gives us a good conclusion. But overall, Billy, what would you recommend or not recommend?
Well, I mean, first off, is the last season going to come out in like? I mean, they haven't even started filming, right? So what are these
They
kids going to
said
be?
they got
22 years old?
yeah, they said
I
they got the
mean,
writing finished.
wonderful. So the writing, so they still have to get budgets approved, and yeah, we're miles off. So these guys could be like 20, 21 years old by the time they're filming this. So
I
it's not
heard they're
even
doing a
not even gonna be
time
in.
skip.
Oh God, even worse, dude, because it's not gonna make any sense. So Vecna's just been chilling. Was he healing from his burn wounds? Come on, man. That's don't even get me started, man.
Sounds like you've already gotten started.
Yeah, no. What would I rate this season?
Yeah.
If I didn't watch the previous, I just watched it as its sole content. Probably an 8 out of 10. Um, but like in the mix of it being part of the series, probably a 4 out of 10. Just because I'm definitely being story driven on this, and I can't stand shows when they don't give you as a viewer anything to work on.
Yep. I agree. I'd say for it, if you're a fan of Stranger Things, you'll probably enjoy it enough to watch it. Your mileage may vary on what you watch it for. If you watch it
Yeah.
for the mystery, you'll probably hate, that we still don't know things. But if you watch it for a lot of the characters, you'll probably get some enjoyment out of seeing, characters interact and what they're up to and the conflicts they go through. So overall, I'd say I'd recommend it if you like Stranger Things. But moving on to our next topic, we wanted to touch on last week we did a review for Thor: Love and Thunder, and it's been getting some negative reviews.
Pretty major
Yeah, you want
negative
to touch on that,
reviews.
Kyle?
Yes, I'll set it up. People are really upset at the movie in general. So there's quite a large audience behind the idea that maybe it was too silly, um, very campy. They're comparing it to like the Batman and Robin of the original Batman trilogy.
Bat
They're-
nipples.
yeah, they're saying it's that level of bad. And they're saying that's Christian Bale's talents were wasted on this movie because his character was kind of silly and campy. They didn't understand it. So there's that going on, and then there's also a lot of people upset at Taika Waititi. Made some comments. Mostly, this was some comments that he made actually about Star Wars. But apparently, he's directing a new Star Wars movie, and during this film, he asked Natalie Portman, like, "You're great. Would you love to be in a Star Wars film?" And she was like, "What are you talking about? I've been in 3 of them." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And it was like a joke, but like people are like, "This is the guy that's gonna direct a new Star Wars movie." Didn't even know Natalie Portman was in 3 of them already. And so like, there's a lot of frustration around that. And then I also read there was some frustration around like undermining. I read this morning that they were undermining Jane Foster's worthiness by having Thor basically like grant the blessing and say like do whatever you can to protect her, saying she was never truly worthy, she shouldn't have wielded it. Like they undermined that, and just like a lot of nitpicky things like that. Some justified things I get, but I do think that they are steering really hard into the Thor hate right now, which is kind of a bummer. But it is what it is, and it's not that it's not completely justified because there are some things I agree with, but I think for me it was very easy to overlook a lot of these things.
Yeah, and that's pretty. While I do agree with some of their points, I don't think that makes it like the worst movie ever. Um, that that I've seen from Marvel. I mean, Thor, even Thor: The Dark World, which people say is the worst. To me, it's not that bad. So I think you know Marvel fans, a lot of times they're used to really good content, and when it's not up to that standard and it's only slightly good, they throw a huge fit.
I think my standards for Marvel films is actually kind of lowering a bit.
After Endgame?
After Endgame, the real standouts for me was Shang-Chi and Spider-Man. Spider-Man No Way Home, because he's had 2 that's released after Endgame. But all the other ones, I mean, I guess, you got the Loki TV series that was really hyped, but it's kind of like nothing has really grabbed me in the way that the first 10 years did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand it. The traction. I mean, we haven't had a
Building
phase.
towards anything.
Yeah, we haven't had a phase like phase 1, or I don't, whatever, phase 1, 2, whatever one led up to Thanos. We haven't really had one of those in any of these movies. Uh, now I'm thinking back in, hmm, back in like the original Iron Man 1, Captain America. They didn't really build up to Thanos until Avengers. Otherwise, they were just building up to Avengers.
Yeah, that made sense though, because
Yeah.
that was
You
like
can't
Thanos
introduce
wasn't built up
Thanos.
till you can't introduce Thanos until you introduce the Avengers. Um, and that was huge for the time because movies just weren't doing that. Movies weren't combining. There was like 3 different movies that all led to this, and so it seems very minor scale now. But that was a very worthy thing to build up to. It was just that first Avengers film, and then once you did, you were like, "Oh my God, where do they go next?" And then the after credits of Avengers 1, they show Thanos' face. That led to the next, however many 7 years it took to wrap up that whole storyline. So I think that even though it just led up to the Avengers, it was still like the Thanos story arc. It was all kind of revolving around him because he was also the one that gave Loki, that army
The
to
scepter.
attack Earth and all that. So yeah, I don't see anything being built up like that. I see lots of potential in all these different things happening, but I think everything is kind of following its own path, and I don't know if there's really like. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that they're going to just blow our minds. But I think that everything's kind of self-contained, self-isolated within their own stories now.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, I'm all open if they blow our minds. I'm ready for it, but they have so many options that they could be building towards, and I don't know which one, and I don't know when.
That's the thing. We just expect it, and if there's one thing that I took away from this film is we are miles. Like we're literally probably 7 years minimum before they arc this thing back. Like first time it was proof of concept. It was okay. We're gonna take multiple characters from their multiple origin story movies and then arc them together. And there was this excitement, like how the hell are they gonna do this? How the hell are they gonna bring it together? And after each movie, you got this little inside scoop as to how they were gonna do it, what was evolving, and then you go and you Google that and you read about it, and it was like this excitement. And then Avengers gets announced, and you're like, it's like, oh god, this is gonna be, where everybody comes together and stuff. Like it was sort of proving that path, but now you can't do that. Now you have to sort of bring them together in another way. Um, they're miles off, and I think that's why they probably haven't set out like a roadmap in what 18 months is the last time we got a roadmap for their next
I think
slate
so,
of
yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
Because what do we have? We have till early 2024 is what we have sight
Right
into.
now, yeah.
So, whenever they drop like what their next stuff is, like I don't think there's going to be anything in there that is, I think you're going to see probably continuation, like probably Thor 5, and other sequels part of the series, but I don't think there's going to be anything that arcs these together in terms of some grand format. And so like these have translated from these movies where it was like, yeah, I couldn't wait to watch it because I was really looking forward to the movie, but I was also looking forward to that end credit scene of what's the next step, right? Okay, I'm excited for this new character to get introduced, but what's the next step for the overall universe? Where are we working towards? You're not getting that flavor, and there's nothing really in the scheme of what this means. So it's yeah, it's interesting.
It's been a long time since we've gotten anything that reveals, like, there's lots of speculation, but there hasn't been anything that's definitively told us what the next step is. And every time we think we got it, we get something else that kind of negates it, you know? So,
Yeah, and I think it's just because we as fans expect this to sort of arc back into something, but also the thing is too, the scale of all this has gotten wonky.
Still big.
Well, not just like physical scale, but like the scale of power, like how you're going to fight beings going forward, like uh,
Like a
uh,
yeah, like
celestial.
you're fighting
like Airship
celestials and
fighting Kang the Conqueror, fighting
yeah,
the
like how do you capture
what's
that?
the all the gods on what's the name of their place with Zeus?
Omnipotent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
See?
Omnipotent City. Yeah, like
and
it's nutty for sure.
I would literally like the thing, like the best battle scene that I've seen in recent iterations, believe it or not, was a scene that didn't include a battle. It was the two visions going at it, and it was like a battle of the minds. Like I wish they did more of that, where it was like a battle of maybe not reason because that would be overplayed like after two, but like a battle of like true wit and not just fucking here's my fist, I'm smashing it into your face. Like kind of seen all that, and no one's gonna do it better than Thor in terms of just looking good while doing it. So like maybe we move on and we start to see like the other powers of these characters that and you start to really see like the mind playing. I don't know. I really don't know. I think they've sort of not writ themselves into a corner, but like it's just become this massive tall order to serve this audience going forward that I think what they're going to do is probably milk a few of these movies, let it sort of fade out in terms of anticipation and excitement, and then boom, drop the hammer, in 7-8 years of like, we're bringing it back and this is how it's going to work, and because who knows where technology is. I mean, maybe CGI in 10 years gets so good that they could reprise the role of Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr. in his
Deep fake.
late 40s. Yeah, do a deep fake and then they can continue those stories and never have to worry about having like people get too old. I don't know. Maybe those movies won't be as good. I don't know, but maybe technology will trend those directions where um they can do that. I don't know.
I think the real question, bring it back a little bit before I know we're running out of time here, but um, after hearing all the negative, publicity surrounding this film, does it change your opinion at all of what we said a week ago when we first watched it?
No. I make my own
No.
opinion.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But
So
there's also I know you make your own opinion, but there's also the, hype of just seeing something and talking about it right afterwards.
yeah, and we've had some time to settle down, but I feel like um I had enough time in the car ride, to do that, to settle
I think
down.
so too.
So,
Yeah, I don't think my opinion changed either. So
no,
the review stands
that's
of what we
right.
said.
Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. Where can they find us, Dylan? That's a great question, me. They can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube under Katie Ratio Podcast, where you can leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be awesome. And then with that, remember, with a good KD, you get the dub.
Bye guys.